Hello, and welcome back to our podcast, Healing Our Community, with Dr. Ray and Jane. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean.
And today's episode, we're talking about the 7 essential emotional needs. We do want to apologize for our podcast last time because the audio mic was not, this mic was not selected. It was another mic. And so it was kind of hard for you to hear. So if you are having a hard time hearing us right now or anything, just please send us a message so that we know. And as a reminder, this is live, so you can send us messages through Facebook and also through YouTube. So without further ado, we're gonna start talking about the 7 emotional needs, the essential emotional needs. And in order to talk about that, we first have to talk about basic physical needs. All right. So people usually know about basic physical needs. This kind of takes us back to, oh my God, this is Psych 101 when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but we're not going to get all clinical, and because this is real talk about mental health. And basic physical needs are food, shelter, and clothing. We all know that we need this in order to survive, and is pretty much common sense. But what are essential emotional needs?
It's interesting because basic physical needs, we can't really survive without, but we also can't survive without these needs being met to some degree.
Yeah.
So, and we know this because of several experiments, and because in Russia after the war, the orphan babies didn't have enough people to care for them. So they were able to diaper the babies and feed the babies, but they weren't able to meet these emotional needs. And they found this pattern of behavior these babies would go through. And the first thing they would do is they would be coyish, like, goo goo gaga, pick me. And what that looks like in life is like seduction. As we get older, we try to seduce people either physically or in other ways to try to get them to meet our needs. When that doesn't work, they have tantrums. So if you've ever seen your partner have a tantrum,
or if you go on Facebook these days, you can see adults having tantrums.
Yeah, they're trying to get some need met. And when that didn't work, they kind of gave up and they became listless. And they say if you go to a third world country, the orphanages are eerily quiet because the babies have kind of given up. And, that's not a good thing for a baby. And many of the babies in the orphans in Russia died. And so we know these are real things because their physical needs were taken care of. And I just want to say one caveat. There's other people that have these lists, and they might look a little bit different. So there's David Rico, who wrote How to Be an Adult in a Relationship. Tony Robbins talks about this concept. There's other people that talk about that, but we're just kind of, this is our list, but it's in sync with the other ones.
Yeah. And as Jean mentioned, we know that these are real needs that a human being needs. So we kind of go through each of them here, and there's 7 of them. Belonging. Human beings have this need to belong to something, belong to a group, belong to a club, belong to a place where they can feel accepted.
Yeah, we were not designed to live alone. We were designed to live in families and live in tribes. And all of that creates a lot less stress in our life, to have people that we can count on, to know that we're not alone, and to enjoy life, to have fun and be exposed to different people and different things. So that belonging is really, really important. And it's one of the things that is kind of eroding because of the internet.
Right. And, that erosion of community, which is absolutely important and essential. And a shout out to Riverbend, a resource center. You guys are building a community over there, which is really awesome. And that really falls right in line with what we're talking about here, is this sense and need to belong.
It reminds me of Waymo. The driverless cars.
Oh, Waymo cars.
So, usually if you're...
Which we rode in a couple of them in San Francisco.
And you're by yourself in there.
When we did the San Francisco podcast.
Yeah. So you don't get to talk to the driver and know a little bit about the area or something. It takes that experience away. It also takes a little stress away if the person is uncomfortable. So it's kind of interesting.
The next essential emotional needs is touch. Obviously, physical touch is really important. I mean, they've done studies with rhesus monkeys, and they've shown that monkeys who have that touch from their mother survive other than the monkeys that don't have any touch, and
Right.
they don't have that. It's actual physical touch. We're not even talking about affection here. It's
Right.
like they had them touching the fur of the mother, and that was essential for actually survival.
Yeah, when those studies came out, there was this big push to make sure you hold your baby when you feed them
Yeah.
and don't just prop the bottle up. And this is why people that have pets live longer,
Mm.
because they are having that touch. And what touch does is it activates oxytocin, it decreases depression and anxiety. And so again, that's another stress reducing thing that helps us live longer.
And there are studies that show that, just having an animal in the room, your blood pressure lowers,
Yep.
right? Your respiration, your heartbeat
So maybe we'll
lowers.
have to have the goats.
No, we're not bringing the goats outside.
I want to hear the votes on the goats.
Oh my gosh, no, that's another story. We just found out that we have a boy goat. So now it's 3 boys and 2 girls.
Originally, we thought we had
thought it
4
was-
girls and 1 boy,
Right,
and then
no.
there were 2 boys and 3 girls.
And then Jane's like, "What is this?" Yep, and,
Yesterday.
yeah, we're learning.
They're developing.
We're new farmers. Okay, so then now we have purpose. Yeah. Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he talked about his experience in Auschwitz, and that he saw that there were people who survived and thrived, and those are people who didn't. And he said that the people who thrived and survived, they had a sense of purpose and meaning, and they were able to see a meaning and in what the suffering they were going through. They were able to see meaning and find a purpose in that. And that is huge, right? In that kind of environment of death and destruction and just pain and suffering, people were still able to wake up and see a sense of purpose and meaning for their life. And that's what helped them thrive and survive.
Yeah, I think the thing that gives us the greatest sense of purpose and meaning in our life is our impact on other people.
Hmm.
And so if you're ever feeling isolated, alone, and like you're kind of, where am I going in life? And your life lacks that purpose and meaning, go find someone to help, because you will benefit from it even more than the person you help. And that is by design, right? That belonging, that first essential need. It takes that belonging, not just to I'm part of a group, but what can I do to make the group better?
Yeah, givers gain.
Yeah.
Right. Safety. It goes without saying, we need to feel safe in our environment. If we are on edge all the time, if we feel like our safety is, violated or it's not intact, we are going to have high levels of cortisol and stress in our body, and we're not going to live. Yeah, we just got this comment here.
Yes, Carolyn.
Carolyn said, "Goats, please." Oh, yeah. But we would have to learn how to put diapers on the goats. You don't want them pooping everywhere.
Well, we don't have to bring them indoors.
Yeah,
It's nice outside. I want to talk about safety a little bit, because we're not just talking about physical safety. We're talking about emotional safety. If you are in a relationship where someone's constantly sort of digging at you or throwing those kind of jabs, that's not a very safe feeling, and that'll shut you down, and that'll block all those good hormones that we get from touching and whatnot. And we're all responsible for the safety of the environment we're in. We're all responsible for the words we choose and how we treat other people. And also, there's another component to safety, that's certainty. That what can I really count on? And that's really important for all human beings. We really like that certainty. We like to know what's going to happen today and what should I plan for. And those surprises can be quite jarring.
for sure.
I know the Resource Center is going through a big transition.
Yep.
And the more information that we have about transitions, the better we do going through them. But that's under this category of safety, which is also emotional.
The next category is attention. People do the wildest, craziest things for attention, right?
Some people play the spoon game.
Attention.
Episode 1.
You could watch one of our previous episodes for that reference there. But attention is an absolute need, right? And so if people are not getting attention, or they grew up in a household where they didn't receive any attention from their caregivers, they are going to seek that attention elsewhere. And, we see this in adolescent girls who did not get attention from their appropriate attention from their fathers and from their mothers. They'll seek that attention elsewhere and put themselves in very precarious, places.
That's why people join gangs.
Same thing, right? It's that attention, and it is an absolute need. So
it gets a bad rap, that need for attention, but it really is real. And, one of the things that can help you if you are sort of insecure about socializing is be the one to introduce yourself. Be the one to try to make someone else feel comfortable. Try to have something to share before you walk into a room. And what you're doing is not just putting yourself in a more comfortable and confident place, but you're putting someone else there too, which adds to the purpose in meeting and adds to the belonging, and just reach out and say, hi, my name's Jean.
All right. Next is validation. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Validation is huge, right? We want to feel validated in our life, and we want to be heard, and we want people to give us significance. And that is part of validation. It's a deep-seated need in every human being.
One common thing with validation is the one-upper.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone knows this. You might be talking to someone and you're kind of sharing about some difficult challenge that you're going through. And then the person one-ups and says, oh, I went through that, but it was much worse. Right. So in that moment,
and this is how I dealt with this, and this is what you should do.
It just, take the wind out of your sails. And in that moment, what you went through and your experience is just invalidated.
Yeah.
You makes it feel like it's nothing.
And if you're in a relationship with someone, either as a friend or as a significant person, and they're meeting some of those needs like attention, affection, but they don't validate you, that's the big term we call gaslighting, right? Where something's going on and you say, well, this makes me feel this way. And they're like, that's not happening.
Right.
I didn't do that. And that's that sense of validation of is my reality real?
Mm-hmm.
Because as human beings, we see like this, we don't see inward. And we need that reflection from other people. And when we get a distorted reflection of our own reality, it's very disconcerting.
That minimization of what another person is going through is so damaging. And you don't have to agree with what the person is saying or what they're going through, but validating it and just saying, I could see how that would be really hurtful, or I could see how that would be really difficult, what you're going through. Just that little piece there, it just makes that person feel seen and heard. What else do we got here? We've got acceptance. Oh, yes. Acceptance. We all want to be accepted, right?
Yeah. And we'll probably talk about this in another concept that we call the stage of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right. So acceptance doesn't say that someone has to agree with you or even like the things that you're doing.
Right.
But it is that they are respectful and they're a safe person that you can have conversations with. And, we see this on a big scale in our politics, that we've taken issues and turned them into demonizing other people.
Right.
And acceptance gets to say, you're you, I'm me, we're different. We can respect each other and we can have that acceptance.
I can accept you for who you are and your belief system. It doesn't mean I have to agree with it. I can have differing opinions, but to completely reject someone,
right?
And it just, what you're saying is that who they are as a person doesn't mean anything.
It's not valid. Yep. Yeah. And with acceptance, people usually, what's the opposite? Don't accept you. They don't accept you because of a limitation or a fear within themselves. Right. And so they'll have an opinion about your life because they're afraid of something. And they need to reject that thing, and they'll reject you as a person. And so, we'll probably do some stuff on the 4 agreements also, which one of the agreements is don't take anything personally. And that's that concept. That's why. And, all of these needs as children, somebody probably provided for you food, clothing, and shelter. And you pretty much knew when you grew up, you'd have to figure that out on your own. The same is true for our emotional needs. Our emotional needs are our responsibility. We can't go back to our partner and say, hey, you're not doing this for me. but you have to look at your life and say, all right, if this need's not getting met, what can I do to increase that? How do I volunteer and find purpose and meaning and connection and what's the first one? Belonging.
Mhm.
And how do I make my life work in a way for me that these needs are getting met, and I'm hopefully meeting them for other people, because that's what leads to good mental health in our life.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And we could see the breakdown of mental health across society today. Because when these essential emotional needs are not met, we get emotional outbursts. We get
That's
anger.
that tantrum. Yep.
We get, just rejection. And this is where, we're also going to stonewall, withdraw. We're going to run away. We're going to give up on our relationships and our communication.
Be that rejecting.
And we're going to be that rejecting. And unfortunately, in today's society now, it goes beyond just anger and rejection. Now it's actually on the offensive. It goes to hate. It goes to aggression. It goes to attacking the other person.
And a lot of times when you really look at the core issue, nothing happened. Nothing really significantly happened that warrants all of that emotion, except it's fear-based, and then you can feed that fear.
One thing we should kind of comment on is understanding what you have power and control over changing, what you have power and control over in your life. It is very easy to see things outside of yourself, beyond your life, and say that my life is unstable because of what's going on. And that is not true. And we have to take a look at ourselves and our life and what we have power and control over changing, and be able to let go of everything outside that we don't have power and control over. If we try to take control of those things or try to take responsibility for those things, all we're going to do is feel powerless. All we're going to do is feel that like listless and needing to withdraw. And it's just going to lead to anger and depression. So just keep that in mind, right? These essential emotional needs, they affect us in many different ways.
They're real.
They're real, and they're across the board of all humans. So I want to thank you today for joining us on our podcast, Healing Our Community.
Do you got a tagline?
Where we have real talk on mental health. We can't have change.
Delta.
We can't have change, in our society. We can't have change in Delta without having the real talk. And so let's keep talking, Delta. I don't know. Was that good? Do you think? Guys, you guys got to help us, right, with the tagline.
You doing an outro?
See you next time, Wednesday, 12:15. Thank you.